Hello and welcome to your new 17th edition online course. My name is Paul Mosley and I'm going to be your tutor as we work our way through BS7671. If you've got any questions or any comments, anything you'd like to know, do feel free to get in touch with me. You can either use the contact forms on the web page or email me directly, or if you wish, there should be my phone number, my mobile phone number somewhere on this page. Just be aware though that every now and again I am training and engaged in other things, so I may not be able to return your phone call straight away, but just leave a message and I will get back to you, so no problems there. As I said, I'm your tutor for the next however long you want to take going through this session. It's entirely up to you. Feel free to get in touch with me at any time. Any other queries regarding admin, just get in touch with those as well. There should be a link knocking about somewhere as well for that. So let's have a look at a couple of things. First of all, which book are we going to be using? Hopefully in front of you there should be a yellow copy of the 2015 edition of BS7671. If not, you need to get along to Amazon or wherever and purchase a copy, because that is the one that we are going to be using for this course. The previous red book, which was the first 17th edition, which came out in 2008, is no longer relevant or useful, and the green book, which came out in 2011, will be coming to the end of its days in the end of June 2015. So again, the book we're going to be using is the yellow one, so get yourself a copy of that if you don't already have one, and I'll see you back here. Course objective. So this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to go through the yellow book, parts 1 to 7 and the appendices within BS7671. I'm going to be going through the book cover to cover, just talking to you like this as if we were sat in a classroom talking together. So we'll go through the book all the way through from one side to the other, hopefully building up our familiarity with the contents of the book and preparing you for the Sitting Guilds 2382 exam. Now the 2382 exam, before we have a look at it in the more detail, I just want to go through something. It's not an electrical engineering exam, and it's not an electrical engineering course. This course is all about preparing you to pass the 17th edition wiring regulations examination. The examination is an assessment or test of your ability to use and reference BS7671. As I said, it's not an engineering course, so they don't need to get over technical, although it does relate to a lot of technical stuff, and I'll explain a few things as we do go along. So you don't need to worry. It's not a memory test, as we'll see. It's an open book exam, so it's about you being able to use and reference this book and being able to demonstrate that satisfactorily. Yes. So you'll demonstrate your competency with using the book or being able to find your way around with a 2-hour online exam, which will be held at an approved centre. When you feel competent and ready to do your exam, get in touch with either myself or admin and we'll sort something out. Although I've got a really good pass rate with this exam. As far as the online course is concerned, at the moment I'm recording this, I have a 100% pass rate for people who follow the process. So unless you've done all of the workbooks and all of the online practice exams, I'm not really going to put you through for the exam. I'm guarding jealously my 100% pass rate. So if you want the best chances of passing the exam, complete the course. You could do it as quickly or as slowly as you wish. You can take it over a few weekends and some evenings, or you can take a couple of months. It's entirely up to you, but complete the course, and I have guaranteed, and I still guarantee, that you will pass. Yes. So the exam, going back there, is 60 multiple choice questions, and you've 2 hours to complete it, as we said, and it's open book using BS7671 2008 plus Amendment 3 2015, so the yellow book. So we're getting you ready to take the Sitting Gills 2382 15 examination. Here's a little bit of information you'll find useful, and it is the quick reference guide. If you look on that sheet of paper on the quick reference guide, in case you haven't downloaded it, go to the bottom of this page. There should be some download links, and download the quick reference guide. There is a copy of this exam breakdown at the bottom, on the bottom right hand side of that sheet. Just a quick look, you have in total 60 questions, and we know it's not a secret information, and it's not some magic code we've cracked. This is information from the IET and Sitting Gills. We know what question number you should be on and whereabouts in the book you should be. As you're doing the exam, the overall flow will be from front to the back of the book. The exception, and there's always an exception, as you'll see, is when you get to the relevant parts, it will throw you around in the parts. So questions relating to part 4, your first one might be right at the end, then you're back to the middle, the beginning, back to the end, back to the end again, back to the middle, so it'll throw you around in the relevant parts, but the overall flow is throughout the book. So we know if you're on question 8, you're going to be in part 3. If you're on question 48, you're going to be in part 7. So have a look at that. You can see there, not all things are equal. You get 4 questions on part 1, but you get 15 questions on part 4 and 14 questions on part 5. Parts 4 and 5 are the meat of the exam. The areas you really want to concentrate on are 4, 5 and 7, because you are looking at a possible 65% there, just off those. The pass mark is deceptively low. In order to pass this exam, you need to score at least 60%, which breaks down into questions. You need to get 36 questions right. If you only get 35 questions right, you'll fail the exam. It's as simple as that. That's the line, 36, which is 60%. So aim for, well, I always say aim for 100%, just to be sure. So if you would open your book to page 3, and let's have a look at the table of contents. You've got 7 parts overall and 16 appendices, although in fact 2 of the appendices are empty, nothing in them. Let's have a look at the parts. Just a quick overview of this. We're not going to dig too deep, as we say, we're going to be doing that as we go through anyway. So part 1 is scope, object and fundamental principles. Scope is really what the book applies to, what the book doesn't apply to. Object is why they've written the book. Fundamental principles is a list of basic ideas or rules that all electrical installations should adhere to, and is really setting out the criteria for the rest of the book. Part 2 is definitions, quite useful, but basically just a dictionary. Common terms used throughout the book. Common terms and phrases used throughout the book. So if you're a bit rusty on some of your terms, it might be worth spending a little time in definitions. As far as your exam's concerned, I wouldn't worry too much about it. There's only 2 questions, but they should be 2 good points, because basically you're looking at what something means. Part 3 is assessment of general characteristics. I like to think of part 3 as all of the things you would have to consider if you were designing an electrical installation from scratch. And again, we'll look at that later. Then we start getting into the nitty-gritty and the meat of the book. Basically what the book is all about is protection for safety, ensuring the safety of both users, occupants and the building itself. So it's an important and key part. After that is part 5, selection and erection of equipment, or choosing and using, as I like to say. It's all about the equipment that you would use in order to comply with part 4, basically. Part 6 is inspection and testing. Doesn't go into any details on how you do the inspection and testing. It's just simply what you should do, what you need to do, as far as new installations, periodic inspections on existing installations, and also the certification documentation that needs to be completed. And then we get to part 7, which again is quite a big, large area, covering at the moment 19 installations or locations where there's an increased risk of electric shock, usually due to wet conditions or things being knocked about a little bit, or a combination of both. So there's special rules or additional rules and regulations concerning those areas, which we'll look at. And also we have the appendices at the back of the book. Say 16 appendices, but if you look there, 11 and 12 are empty. This is additional or supplementary information concerning rules and regulations throughout the book. There's some useful bits in those, as well, as we'll see later on, but I just want to mention a little bit more about the appendices in just a moment. If you stay on page 3 and have a look at the exam breakdown table that you've got on your quick reference guide, and should also be on the screen in front of you, I just want to point something out to you. May make life a little bit easier, or the course and exam not seem as overwhelming. If you look, as we mentioned before, you're going through the book from cover to cover. It's an assessment of your ability to use and reference this book, and all we're doing really as we go through is building up a familiarity with the book by going through it page to page. Nearly as good as 500 fun-filled pages. But getting back to the exam, I just want you to notice you've got parts 1 to 7. If you look on the table of contents, you can see what page the appendices starts on, and the appendices start on page 296. Yep. If you look at that exam breakdown, how many questions are there on the appendices? 5. There's only 5 questions on the appendices, so that means within parts 1 to 7 you have got 55 questions. So it's basically as good as, say, 300 pages, 55 questions, and the last 200 pages or so, 5 questions. So think about it from that point of view. Think about the main exam is the 55 questions within part 7. Out of those 55 questions, you're looking at 40 questions just on parts 4, 5 and 7. So those are your key areas you need to be concentrating on. The appendices, you get 5 questions. You're actually asked more questions on part 3 than you are on the appendices. So if you're going to be doing any extra reading, don't be spending 2 days reading the appendices. You'll be better off, much better off, familiarising yourself with the individual chapters within parts 4 and 5. So just a bit of a heads up. Don't think of the exam as it's the whole of the book. Think about it as 55 questions on the first 300 pages. And the appendices, those 5 questions are bonus questions. Yep. Highlighting and tabs. City and guilds are, well, There's some information actually on the website if you want to look it up over on City & Guilds. I think it's .co.uk, I'm not too sure. You've got information there. Basically, you are permitted to highlight the book, and you can also use tabs on the pages. The only thing they stipulate there is that the tabs should not have writing on them. You can have numbers on the tabs, yep, but you can't have writing on the tabs. If you're going to use tabs around the book, I suggest you use them sparingly. Be careful about going through the book and thinking every other page, because it's easily done. You get every couple of pages you think, oh, that's useful, that's useful, oh, that's useful, and before you know it, you've got tabs all the way around the top, side and bottom of the book, which defeats the purpose, because you'll be spending the whole of your exam looking through the tabs when you should be opening the book, because by opening the book you may see something you couldn't find earlier, or something which may become useful later. So my advice is use tabs sparingly if you have to use them. I prefer a clean book with nothing in it, but that's just me. And also, like I say, although City & Guilds permit highlighting and tabs, it's down to the individual centre invigilating you on the day as to whether they allow it or not. One centre might let you have a lot of more tabs or highlights than a particularly other one. It's not standard. So the only way you can ever ensure that your book's going to be fully compliant when you go for the exam is to have it clean, a clean book. But again, I'll leave it up to you. If you're not too sure and you want further guidance on this, then I'd go and have a look at the City & Guilds website. There's some information there on that. The numbering system in the book is quite intuitive. Once we start going, you get your heads around it. It's not that bad. Basically, you've got parts 1 to 7. Yep. So anything within part 1 starts with a 1. Anything within part 2, that's a trick one, there's no numbers for part 2, but anything within part 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 7, so you get the gist. Nothing complicated there. Each particular part breaks down into chapters. So for example, within part 4, if you look still on your table of contents, you can see part 4, protection for safety, breaks down into 4 individual chapters. So anything relating to chapter 41 would be start with regulation 441. Yep. So that would be part 4, chapter 41. Then after that, each chapter breaks down into individual sections. You have a number of sections. Sometimes a chapter may just have one section, sometimes it may have half a dozen or more sections within it. So, and then each individual section will break down into regulations. Again, it sounds a lot more complicated than what it actually is. So for example, regulation 415.1.1, which you'll hear a lot as we go through this course, is part 4, chapter 41, section 415, regulation number 1.1. So that's part 4, that's the 4 bit. Because it's 41, it'll be 41, and it's section 415, so it's part 4, chapter 41, section 415, then regulation 1.1. Like I say, it sounds a lot harder than it actually is. It's quite intuitive. Don't worry about it, you'll just pick it up as we go through anyway. Something else about the numbering system. Changes differ. It differs slightly when we get to part 7, but I'll explain that when we get there. And something else, you may notice a couple of the numbers, regulation numbers here, there and everywhere, end in either 100, which are Senlec regulations. Again, if you're not too sure what Senlec is, might use a bit of an exercise. You can look it up in the list of abbreviations within definitions. And then you also have, which is probably newer to this book, UK only regulations, and they will end in a 200. So you'll have, for example, 415.1.200. I mean, it doesn't exist actually, that regulation, just made that one up off the fly, but That's it. So that's the numbering system.